cyber attacks, elections, COVID, lockdowns. Again, 2020 never ends. It never seems to end. Except for this. Today's podcast is sponsored by the Association of Mature American Citizens, the only conservative alternative to AARP, liberal AARP. So don't go there. Go to amac.us/Carter. That's CARTER. Don't forget to put that in there. I am, stunned at just all of the developments over the last year. And first, I would like to say thank you to all the young people at Turning Point in Palm Beach, Florida. I was so excited to be out there with you. So excited to be able to actually see other human beings this year. And even though we were wearing masks and many times you didn't recognize me until I pulled it off. Thank you so much for those of you who did know it was me underneath the mask. I really appreciate that. It was wonderful being there, and it was wonderful being a part of such a great event and seeing so many patriotic young Americans that want liberty and freedom and believe in conservative values and our capitalist system. So thank you for that. But I want to go to a country that does not believe in anything that we stand for. I believe in amoral government, which is the Chinese Communist Party, a very dangerous government, one in which our government has really seceded so much to. And I'm not talking about the Trump administration. I'm talking about the Bush administration. Let's go all the way back to Nixon, right? I mean, they were trying to do this China reset, and then now, we've seen the result of that. There were so many people and still are, by the way, in the State Department, in the Pentagon, here in Washington, D.C.'s big swamp of lobbyists that swim around and try to convince you that China is the place to be, right? Like that Chinese products are cheaper, that we're a global world now, that trade is so important. Yes, it is. And we are global, but it's not as important as standing up for the American people. It's not as important as our national security. It's not as important as finding out the truth about the continuous attacks on our system from China and the Chinese Communist Party. Not only do they steal our intellectual property, but now we have these incredible stories, guys. I mean, this solar wind hack is so important, and I want to point out why. I'm going to go take you back a little bit. When I first started working in Washington D.C., I was with the Washington Times, and I was a Pentagon correspondent. I remember one of my first really big stories, one of the things that I was working on was actually cyber attacks at the Pentagon. I know it's crazy. It's crazy to believe this, but this was the most incredible story of all, for me at least. There was a student, I believe it was at Virginia Tech. I'm going back like more than a decade here. And they were a student from China, and they were working at Virginia Tech and had close access to the area Pentagon. It's like Northern Virginia. So they spent years at Virginia Tech, graduated. The Pentagon, by the way, at this point in time, this was very top secret, had been hacked. Like 7 layers deep is what I remember being told by a general who was then in charge of looking into this. 7 layers deep into our Pentagon, into our most classified documents. And what happened was this student returned back to China and then decided to write this op-ed. It was an opinion editorial that basically said that Americans are idiots, that he went to school in the United States and was like down the street from the Pentagon and was hacking into the Pentagon. And he wasn't even really a student. He was with Chinese intelligence. He was part of their super cyber force, in the Chinese military. And it was such a concern for our Pentagon officials. I mean, they had to bring in all kinds of people. I remember PayPal being one of them, that the people that ran PayPal had to come to the Pentagon, and there was all kinds of issues with how they were going to reinforce the system to make it more secure. Now let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to today. We have a major attack on our government agencies that just happened this month. Nobody is 100% sure whether that is Russia or China. And but the attack is so ferocious, and if you haven't been reading about this, or if the major media news outlets haven't been talking to you about this, they should. They should. Let me just give you an example. For example, OPM, Office of Personnel Management in Washington D.C. That was also hacked. That was hacked by the Chinese a few years ago. And everybody in Washington, D.C., that has a classified clearance that basically has to file an SF-86, which is, your full disclosures, right? This would be like if you wanted a job at the State Department handling classified material, if you were working at the NSA, if you were working at the CIA, and wherever you're working, they would have all of this information. Well, the Chinese hacked into the system and basically took everybody's SF-86. So think about that. So even if you're sending people overseas, I mean, the information is there. They could build up dossiers. They could figure out who's working in what agencies. This is really dangerous stuff. And now President Donald Trump is saying, the media is coming out there and there are people, analysts. And remember, an analyst is only assessing. They are assessing what they think might have happened. They are not the end all be all, as we know, because a lot of our analysts, not all of them, have failed, like on assessing Russia, on assessing Israel. I mean, on China, and it depends. It depends on what you're looking at, right? There are some people that are right on. They're really cautious. There are others that are more less cautious and just want to throw everything out there, like the Russia analysts that basically got everything wrong on Russia, right? Everything with President Trump. That was just the biggest joke ever. And they were also being played. And on China, there's all this concern and caution because why? Because we got huge companies, by the way, like Microsoft, like Facebook, like Google, and that have all these connections, Apple to China and to cheaper products like Walmart. I could go on and on and on and on, right? So everybody's scared. But now we have this attack, and President Donald Trump got everybody in an uproar because, people want to believe this is just Russia. But, there's a lot of concern, too, that this also may be a China attack. And so why the confusion, right? Why the confusion? I can tell you a little bit about why. I've spent a lot of time covering U.S. intelligence, covering foreign intelligence, and sometimes what appears to be one thing is actually something else altogether. I'll give you an example. If, let's say, China hacked into our system, this whole solar wind software, let's say it was China, right? Let's say President Trump is right and it might be China. They may want it to look like it's Russia, right? They may want it to be like, oh, Russia did that. We didn't do that. So they will leave markers and throw people off. They will direct those analysts, these superb analysts. By the way, there's a lot of superb analysts here that work at the NSA and work at other, geospatial, incredible people with incredible minds. But some are more political, and that's probably what I should have said in the beginning. Some are more political, so they won't see the other alternatives. So they throw people off. They're saying, oh, the Chinese experts are making everybody look at Russia, or the Chinese people who hacked are making everybody look at Ukraine. So, or Russia may want it to look like China, or Iran may want it to look like China. It all depends. So our analysts and our experts have to go through all of that. Now, President Donald Trump on Saturday, he downplayed the hacking campaign. I would not downplay that at all. Because I think that, they got into and this is the only thing I would disagree with the president on, that if he downplayed it, it's, I don't think he was as much downplaying it as he was trying to say, look, we don't have all the answers yet, right? But I'm going to tell you why it's such a big concern, because they went into our national security agency for our nuclear structures. And that's something that we have to be extraordinarily careful about. We cannot take any chances. The worst thing that we can do as a country is think that everything's going to be the same. It's all going to be okay. Nobody's ever going to try to do anything to us. We'll never have another World War II because the world's different. We'll never be dragged into another war with a major nuclear power. Um, we we would be
The
failing
longer
ourselves
term,
if that
almost
were the
existential
case,
challenge
right? I want to
is
play
going
you a
to be
clip.
China. It
I
just
want you to
is.
listen to this. This is
We have to
General
come to
Mark
grips with that.
Milley
I'm not
on the
saying you're going to have a
issue. I
war
want you
with
to hear
China.
him. I'm saying we are already at some kind of cyber and military, I would say more like space war, right? You know, cyber war, kind of Cold War with China right now. I agree with General Milley. I think Milley is right on the money. And I know this might surprise you guys, but President Obama, even in his last year, and I'm not saying he did anything right with China. I didn't agree with his foreign policy at all. I was completely opposed to it. I was stunned at how bad it was, particularly in the Middle East and in other areas like Iran and, dealing with Persia, dealing with Afghanistan. But President Obama did say in his last year that China was going to be the biggest issue for the United States. They already saw it coming. The Pentagon saw it coming. Our intel agencies saw it coming. And President Trump is the first president that actually held China accountable on trade deals, called them out, feet to the fire. We're not going to do this, China. We're not going to do this anymore. And General Milley is 100% right. Look at what President Trump said in a tweet. I want to read this to you before I move on. The cyber hack is far greater in the fake news media than in actuality. I'm not sure about that. I have been fully briefed and everything is well under control. I believe that. I believe that there is some control here. We have great agencies that can really focus on who did it, pushing them back out, ensuring that it's the harm is mitigated, that the virus, whatever was sent in through the SolarWinds program software, that is taken care of. But there's still a lot of concern here. And this is where I kind of I go with President Trump. He says, Russia, Russia, Russia is the priority chant when anything happens because lamestream is, for mostly financial reasons, petrified of discussing the possibility it may be China. It may. He is 100% right there. 100%. They are terrified of China. When I was at the Pentagon, and I've said this story before, I would talk to Admiral Mullen at the time. He was head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We would try to tell stories, even at the Washington Times. I throw out Bill Gertz again, my good friend Bill Gertz, who I adore and I think is an incredible investigator, journalist, and writer, and his focus is China. He had the most difficult time ever trying to get a story out on China. Why? Because even at the Pentagon, even the highest levels of the echelon here, no matter what the Chinese did, they were owned by our businesses. Like, wouldn't let us do it. They would like literally try to stop us from telling those stories, literally, by influencing people in government, the bureaucracy. They didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want to talk about China. Didn't want to talk about how dangerous China is to our nation. And that's frustrating. And before I wrap up, because I do have one more thing. I promise you this before I go to my next hot topic, which is Cuba. And I know you guys want to hear this. We're only, so much to say there. But I was at an event, with Turning Point. We were all talking, and there was somebody in one of the discussions that I was at talking about national security. It was a pilot, a retired commercial pilot who would fly from the United States to Beijing and just recently retired. And he said one of the things that, and this is really stunning information to me because I would never really think about it. I always thought about it of other countries, but not with China. One of the things that he and other pilots would joke around about is how many today on the plane. And I was like, what does he mean by that? From Beijing to the United States. And it would be families, pregnant women from China, pregnant Chinese citizens, flying into the United States in their 9th month or getting ready to have birth. And I never thought about that. China plays the long game, folks. China doesn't play just for today. China isn't worried about how fast they can get something done in one day China sees things 10 years, 20 years down the road. Why are so many wealthy Chinese Communist Party members, I'm guessing, women, because you can't fly from here if you're poverty stricken, right? You're not going to get your visa if you come from a farm somewhere up north in China, to fly to the United States to have your baby. So I'm guessing wealthy Chinese communist women having their babies here in the United States. They become American citizens, right? They can make that choice at the age of 18. And our nation right now, and our nation's capital, is filled with spies. This isn't about the poor Chinese people who are suffering under this amoral government who basically has enslaved Uyghurs for cheap labor and sent them to education camps. I'm hoping education camps. I'm hoping they are not being killed or beaten. It's bad enough that it's a re-education camp. We don't even have all the truth. Think about that. Think about that every time we buy something cheaper. We all do because we can't help it. It's everywhere, because it's made in China. These are our enemies. We may not be in an actual physical war with them, but we are in a cold war with China. Don't let anyone ever tell you that we are not, because we are. We are in a trade war. We are in a cold war. We are watching China. China is one of our biggest threats. And, and China, I mean, I could go on and on with this forever, and I won't. But China is definitely something that even in our own homes in the Midwest and, on the East Coast and on the West Coast, we need to be really thinking about, right? Because look at what happened with coronavirus. Look at what happened with COVID. Look at the lockdowns. Look how our lives have changed. All because China refused to tell the world what was going on in China. So China, the Chinese Communist Party, not the people, but the Chinese Communist Party is not your friend, is not your friend at all. And we'll be focusing in on this on the Sarah Carter Show. I'm telling you again and again and again, because there's so many areas that we need to focus on with that. So we're only a few days away from Christmas. Everybody, that's in a Democrat stronghold state, I'm so sorry for you. You guys are all on these crazy lockdowns. But, as far as COVID-19, it's a real issue. Take Super Beets. Super Beets soft chews. You are missing out if you're not taking them. First of all, they taste great. They're kind of like Skittles. They have grapeseed extract that they use in these Super Beets, and it's been clinically shown to be 2 times, listen to this, 2 times as effective as supporting normal blood pressure as healthy lifestyle alone. So don't you want to get healthy? Don't you want to feel healthy? And you want to build your immune system to fight back not just COVID-19, but any kind of flu, anything that comes your way. Better blood pressure means more energy, the way nature intended, without all the jittery, weird caffeine or stimulants. I can tell you this, I take them every day. I feel fantastic. I feel great. I feel healthy. Do what I did and support your heart health with delicious Super Beets chews. Get your Super Beets chews today at getsuperbeets.com/Carter. That's getsuperbeets.com/Carter. And when you buy 2 bags, get this, they'll throw in a third for free. That's getsuperbeets.com/Carter. And it is only a few days from Christmas, folks, so you want to get healthy. Now, not everyone is as lucky as us, right? Not everyone's going to have the Christmas or the Hanukkah or, whatever holiday they're celebrating the way we do here in America. That's why we are so blessed. We are truly a blessed nation and we have so much. And I always say when I'm complaining about something, like I try to snap myself out of it. That's a first world problem. Just stop. That's a first world problem. I'm thinking about some of my mom's family. I've never been to Cuba. I have had family that has been back to Cuba. I know that I still have family there, which I would love to meet one day. I would love to go to Cuba one day, but it's a very, very dangerous place for so many people. And, so many Cubans have suffered so much. My mom came in the 1960s. Thank God she didn't have to traverse the ocean and try to get here. She was on a Johnson Freedom flight along with my other family members on the Peter Pan flights. And My mom's now passed away, and she never returned to Cuba. I always hoped that maybe one day, and was hoping after Fidel passed away that Cuba would change, but it didn't. And there's a lot of back and forth on how we should handle Cuba and what we should do with Cuba. President Obama did everything but, I guess, invite the Cuban government here for a big party, right? With Cuba. Totally, I could tell you there are so many Cubans and so many people in the Senate, like Marco Rubio, like Ted Cruz, and people who oppose this, opposed it completely, this type of reset with Cuba. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the Cubans are in access of complete evil right now. If you don't believe it, just look at how they deal with Venezuela. Look at how they deal with Iran. Look at what they do with other state players and actors, even Russia to this day. And they're just right off our coast, right? They're just right off our coast. They affect our policy everywhere from Latin America throughout the globe. And by the way, their intelligence apparatus is extraordinary. And they do everything they can to manipulate the United States. Even more so. Do you guys remember that attack on our U.S. embassy a few years ago? Do you remember that? Where it was like a sound boom that literally, this hypersonic boom that actually made some of our diplomats deaf. That was an attack on our embassy and on our diplomats, and it was a directed attack. That just didn't happen out of nowhere. That wasn't just, something that was another country or whatever we didn't have an answer to. We have an answer to that. That was the Cubans. And that was the Cubans maybe operating with somebody else. There is, nothing about Cuba right now that, and nothing that makes me angrier than realizing that media president-elect Biden and Harris want to do this massive reset with Cuba. I want to play a clip here of Biden pledging to return to Obama-Cuba policy. This is from CBS Miami. Listen to this.
Cuba policy. Would you go back to the Obama policy with regard to Cuba if you were reelected, or you were elected president?
Yes, I would. In large part, I would go back. I'd still insist they keep the commitments they said they would make when we, in fact, set the policy in place. But look what's happened. This is more than about Cuba. It's about all the Caribbean, and it's about all of our allies and friends in Latin America. And what we did when we changed the policy, we began to be open up and get so much more support within the region. And that's what we should be doing now. There's no reason to continue the policy that this president has put in place.
What? We're going to get support from who? Maduro in Venezuela? We're looking for support from what? We want the Western Hemisphere. We want communism to spread across the Western Hemisphere. Look, hey, I guess because Obama seemed to have no problem with Maduro, with Venezuela, with Cuba. I mean, that was their policy, right? America last, everybody else first. It's all our fault. Everything that happens in the world is because of us. Let's reset with everyone. Let's not hold these bullies accountable. Let's not hold these people, these governments, by the way, like Cuba, like China, like Maduro and Venezuela, who, by the way, have just destroyed life for their people in their own home countries. Let's just let them run rampant and let's cut deals with them. Because no matter how many times we hit our head against the wall, we're just going to keep hitting it, right? We're going to believe that actual change is on the way. Actual change. Yeah, they'll change. They're going to become capitalists. Don't worry. If we just keep, doing business with them, they will actually become a capitalist, democratic society. But look, I don't even believe that anymore. I just believe they want everything to turn communist. Why not America? Why, the past socialist values, right? We need to share. Look at Mayor Bill de Blasio. My gosh, he is a full-on communist. He is mayor of New York City. Let's just spread the wealth. No, don't worry. You don't have to go to work. So what if your restaurant shuts down? So what if you no longer can go back to your, to the restaurant that everybody loved, to the deli that everybody went to, because now it's shut down forever because of lockdowns? We're just going to give you handouts. Nothing in the world is worse than giving somebody a handout. You want to know why? Because you actually become a slave to the person that gives you the handout. Nothing is free. Nothing is free. And then they own you, right? And then they own you. It's like when you're a kid and you're like, mom and dad, you can't wait to get out of the house when you're a teenager. You're like, oh my gosh, can't wait to go to college. Because you hear your parents say all the time, when you're in my house, you have to follow my rules. Well, guess what? In a socialist society that gives you everything, you think really gives you nothing, because the wealthy, the government, the centralized people, they all have everything. You have nothing. You have nothing. You're just left with nothing. I can tell you this because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've traveled to countries where people have nothing and the government doesn't care. They really do not care about you. They care about themselves, which is what we're seeing in the United States right now, right? Which is what we're seeing on the left. I'm not even going to say liberal. I tell everybody that now. I'm not saying liberal anymore. We have all liberal value. We believe in liberty. We believe in freedom. We believe in open markets, right? We believe in open markets. But now we have like capitalist surveillance. We have like a capitalist surveillance world. It's like we are slowly becoming some kind of weird offshoot of communism, of socialism, something that I believe could be actually far more dangerous, right? An oligarchy of, capitalists that want to control society and the narrative and are biased and have their own political leanings. And it's no longer just anything objective. We're not hearing, the truth anymore. And now Biden wants to reset with Cuba, a nation state like China that is just deplorable, amoral to its own people and to us, and that attacked us. What a joke. No, I totally disagree. Here, I want you to hear this other clip, and it's about propping up Maduro. This is Biden on propping up Maduro. You won't believe this. Listen, CBS
Cuba, you'd be
Miami.
rewarding them at a time when they're propping up Maduro.
Well, they're having great difficulty propping up Maduro, number one. Maduro's in real trouble. Number two, there's no reason why we cannot still sanction them, but fail to recognize them at all is a different thing than sanctioning them.
What? He makes no sense at all. He makes no sense at all. It's a joke. Look, this is the problem with U.S. foreign policy in these regions, right? Some of us do not understand these regions. We don't understand these countries, but we should. We should always, when we're thinking of foreign policy, think about how it affects America first, right? How does it affect you and I, right? What does it matter? Hold Cuba accountable. Hold Cuba accountable for the attacks on our diplomats, media, President-elect Biden. That's what you need to do. But Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are the most progressive administration the United States has ever had. Hey, I'm not saying it. Bernie Sanders said it. I mean, look at what's happening right now. You've got Ilhan Omar, like so excited about Green New Deal stuff. You got, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar is pushing all of her agenda, her leftist radical agenda on us. We've got Rashida Tlaib doing the same. You have the Squad basically telling the Democrats, hey, you guys better be paying attention to us because we're in charge now. We're in charge. And believe me, Joe Biden is listening. And it's all about changing this country, fundamentally changing our nation. It is so wrong. And it started this year, guys. It's not like something that's going to happen in the future. It's happening right now before your very eyes with the lockdowns in California, in New York, in Michigan, all across our country. These lockdowns that are forcing restaurants to close down and saying, well, you can only eat outside, but now you can only eat inside. Now you can't eat at all. Now we're going to shut down all these restaurants, only going to be for 2 weeks. Remember 15 days to stop the wave or whatever that was of COVID? Remember that? That just turned into an entire year. We have a vaccine. We have multiple vaccines. Moderna, Pfizer. Right now, people are getting vaccinated. We're looking at maybe 20 million by the end of the year of vaccinations or by the beginning of next year. I mean, this is like crazy stuff. And now they're asking people to look at England. I don't even need to go. Now there's some kind of new offshoot of coronavirus, right? That apparently is spreading around England. And they used to have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And now they've created a new tier 4 level of lockdowns. I'm like, when are we going to get to tier 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10? When are we going to have, like, you can only stay in your bedroom and we'll slip MREs under your door? I don't know. I mean, this is insane. We have people suffering from being locked down, suicide rates up, right? People losing their businesses, losing their livelihoods, and all the people that they employed, right? And then as far as the restaurants go, what about the farmers? And the farmers, where do they do with all their milk? What do they do with their food if there's no place to buy their product? They dump it. Even with all the people starving in the world, they got to dump it. They dump it. They dump their milk. They get rid of their food. I mean, we are in a complete mess. And now we're looking at a Biden administration. You wait. You wait. All you virtue signaling do-gooders who don't want to listen or ask questions, you wait. People are hungry. People won't be able to make their mortgage payments in January. Families are suffering. Families are suffering. They are going to pay the price for that. And then our nation is going to pay the price for this. I'm not saying COVID-19 doesn't exist. I'm not saying we don't need to take precautions. What I'm saying is, God help us if we give away our freedoms. And that's what we've been doing. We have been slowly giving them away, slowly watching our freedoms and our liberty erode, right? Slowly watching our liberty and freedom erode because of fear. We can take those precautions. My God, if you have an illness, underlying illness, if you're suffering, I'll pray for you. I hope you get better. Don't go out and expose yourself, right? Find people who can help. Find people that can help deliver food to your home. If you're elderly, if you're sick, don't go out and expose people to others. Wear your mask, right? If you're sick. But look, our nation is not supposed to be this way. We are not supposed to be the babysitter government. We can take efforts to mitigate the virus. We can do what's right. We can, have a balance. But these type of lockdowns, you think it's just going to end there? Oh, no, it will not end there. It will not end there. I know that I've seen reports of how high, the death rates are. And then, of course, it's winter. But I feel like I can't even ask a question about COVID. I can't say, well, okay, how many deaths appear to be COVID related versus flu related? Oh, my gosh, I just said flu. I'm going to get in trouble. Somebody come after me. She's a conspiracy theorist. What? I thought we did have flus. I mean, don't we? Can I ask the question? Can I ask questions about Joe Biden? Can I ask questions about the election? Can I ask, oh, no, wait a minute. We're in a new kind of weird capitalist, I don't even want to say capitalist. Let's say business surveillance society. Twitter will ban me if I ask any questions. They will probably just shut down my whole Twitter feed and Facebook. So I'm asking you those questions, right? I'm asking you those questions. It's tough, guys. I know. We're coming into Christmas. People out there are, losing their jobs. We have to be there for one another and for our neighbors and for each other. And the only way to really be there for each other is to rely on one another. Don't rely on the government. Don't expect the government to do everything for you. If you expect that, then expect to be owned. Expect to be owned. I want you to listen to somebody who I admire very much. I listen to him quite often. I'm like following him on Twitter. Dave Portnoy, please follow me back. I think you're great. Here's a clip before we wrap up. I want you to hear Dave Portnoy. He's taking matters into his own hand to save businesses. And this is what we all should be doing for each other.
Okay, I've been ranting raving lately about the plight of small business in the United States. New York City just shut down indoor dining. It's like, how do you expect these people to survive? How are restaurants going to survive? They're already on their last legs, and you're pulling the plug on them. And nobody seems to care in the government. Or at least they're not doing anything, acting like they care. No plan, no relief, no bailout. It's like, what's going to happen? So I was ranting and raving about it. Marcus Lemonis challenged me. He's like, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? Well, I've spent the last couple days doing exactly that. So we're going to donate $500,000, and we've come up with a plan. Is it the best plan? No. The best plan is the government getting off their ass and issuing relief, billions of dollars, to these small business owners who are losing their livelihoods and have no recourse and no way to save it through no fault of their own. Billions of dollars. That's the solution. That's the only solution, really. But barring that, we're going to do what we can.
Look, I'm glad Dave Portnoy is doing this, right? He's taking matters into his own hands. That's what we could do for one another. If you have a neighbor, like this is the holiday season, let's think about this. Let's think about this. And by the way, I'm going to tease. We have a super holiday special coming Thursday. Really big news. I've got Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. Okay, granted, they look like Dean Cain and Christy Swanson, Superman and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But I have a great holiday surprise for you guys. Got to stay tuned and listen to it on Thursday. I'm so excited to have Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus with us. And we're going to go through everything. And I'm talking everything. Who's on the naughty list? Who's on the nice list? But before I leave, I thought this was a really interesting story. I know a lot of you out there don't want to take the vaccine. Not everyone, but I see it. I see it out there. Scared of the vaccine, scared what it might do to you, the COVID-19 vaccine. We heard the deputy health secretary say here on the Sarah Carter show that some people actually think it's going to make them bark like a dog. But there's another possible side effect. According to the Brazilian president, Bolsonaro, you could actually be turned into an alligator. I'm serious. I couldn't believe this story. I thought actually it was like, The Onion or the Babylon Bee. No, it was actually in the New York Post. Brazil's president, Bolsonaro, shocked even his staunchest supporters this week with an expletive-filled tirade against the COVID-19 vaccine. He really hates it. Despite 7.1 million cases of the virus in the country and over 185,000 deaths. And this is what he said. I'm not going to get the vaccine. Some say, and this is all translated by the New York Post, so, I'm just believing that they got the right translation here. Some say I'm setting a bad example. Hey, a-hole, I'm sure we all know what that is. Oh, idiot. What are you saying about the bad example? I already had the virus. I already have antibodies. Why should I get the vaccine again? Now, remember, those antibodies, doctors believe, only last about 19 days, right? 19 days. And another thing that has been made very clear, Bolsonaro says, there in the Pfizer contract is a very clear that we at Pfizer are not responsible for any side effects. If you become an alligator, it is your problem. And what is worse, tampering with people's immune systems. And on that note, folks, I hope you don't turn into alligators. I hope we don't start barking like dogs. COVID-19 is very serious. I believe that Pfizer and Moderna have run extraordinary tests. You may not agree with me. I, for one, will get the vaccine. I've been pumped up with everything since I was a kid. Who knows what I have going on inside my blood system? That's my choice. You have choices. This is America. We all have choices. And thank you so much for being a part of the Sarah Carter Show. Remember, I always read your reviews. I would love for you to give us a 5-star rating, whether on wherever you listen to your podcast, whether that's iTunes or Spotify or any of the other million podcast subscribers out there like Spreaker. Please give us a 5-star review. 5 stars and give us a great review. We will be reading them. Thank you so much again for being a part of this show. Right here, we are taking the story back. Merry Christmas and God bless.